Here we are. Hello, hi everybody. Good good afternoon. Welcome to 39 Down. We're trying to share. He was trying to share the this link to his page. So here we are, 39 Down, a show where we discuss everything lifestyle, wellness, and where we continue to work on building up this abundant life that we're called to have. And so today, my guest is none other than Fredrick Bussey. Some of you might be familiar with him. And we are going to discuss something that is, um, I think, crucial uh, for life in general. But it's a topic that we both kind of got introduced to and separately and came together, and where we are so passionate about this topic. And so today we're talking about inherent design. What is inherent design? How does it impact our day-to-day lives? And I chose Fredrick to talk about this just because he actually wrote a book on the topic. You were naming this giftedness. And so I'd like to call you giftedness coach, the giftedness coach. But then we could say you are an inherent design coach, really. And so you wrote this book, Breaking Orbit, right? Rip out of the regular by unearthing the power within. And so we're going to touch on some of the aspects of this book, and then really make sure that we understand how this affects our day-to-day wellness, health choices. So that's what we're doing today. In the book, you talk about education, creativity, spirituality, and all different aspects. And so today we're focusing on wellness. So as I say all that, welcome. Welcome. And thank you for honoring me with your presence on my show.
You're welcome.
And I
just
tried
want
to.
this on the record because this may be the first time it's ever said in public. So
What?
I'm just joking.
Had you last year, but then since your clout is so, I had to make sure that, humble me can be a part sometimes, honoring me, gracing me with your presence. So, and I try to dress the part, to fit the man with the mauve suit from Clubhouse.
Mauve, that's right. Mauve, raspberry.
Mauve, raspberry. So anyway, let's get into the discussion because it is actually hard to put all of that in 1 hour. So we have 1 hour, and this is actually conversations that we have all the time, and it does not last 1 hour. It goes on and on and on. The kids come to check on us like, you're still talking. So let's see. So inherent design.
Right.
Inherent design. Well, what is that, first of all? Because for some, that might be a term that they've never heard before. So can you kind of break down to us what is inherent design?
I can tell you what I understand it to be. There are people who talk on that specifically. Mm-hmm. That's not a term I use in the book. Mm-hmm. Actually, I didn't know about inherent design actually as I was writing it, so I didn't actually hear that particular term until later. But
right.
Inherent design just simply says, you are inherently created a certain way. Mm-hmm. Your personality, talents, abilities, whatnot, right. Those things are inherent in you. And then when you align those things with the way that you live your life, mm-hmm. It has an impact that is extremely valuable. The effects that you have in the world, the impact that you have in the world, is heightened when you are aligned in work and relationships and things of that nature.
Right, right. And that is and that's why it's so important. And you talk about, when you describe your book, sometimes, they ask you, what is your target audience? And then you say it's a universal book, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody has a gift, everybody has inherent design. That's, you were, before you were born, right? You
Right.
were designed. The conception, the thought of you, the conception of you, there was a design, right? And so now you are here, you have a design,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how is, let's talk about the importance of understanding the design.
Mm-hmm.
Because something that you also like to say is, everything that is made, designed for a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has this specific purpose. Can you, I guess, expand on that a little bit? What is, if something is like a doorknob, is designed, it has a inherent design or a gift to it. How does that play out?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we often don't think about as human beings is that we have a purpose. So we have this belief that if as a human being, I have to go out and find or create a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And many people live life without purpose. And purpose implies intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that makes something, if you're a manufacturer, if you are a craftsman, even a blacksmith, right? You build a thing with a intention in mind, a purpose in mind, right? So if I'm a blacksmith and I'm building swords, I'm building it with intention. And so everything that I put into it, the metal I choose, the care I choose in crafting it, to make sure it's stable, that it has a certain size and weight, etc. All has to be designed around the idea of what it's meant to do, right? Its purpose, or the impact that it's supposed to have. But human beings, very often, we come to we have the belief that we don't have a purpose, because we don't see the purpose or intent behind what it is that we're doing, how we're living our lives. Part of that is because we can't, for instance, see the future. Right. I like to say the future is not a real place, but because we are confined into this space of the present, and into the space of where we are physically, not really understanding the ripple effects that our lives can have, then we don't understand if we don't know that our life, our very being, existence, has a very particular purpose, then we can feel like it is absent, is void. And so when we live that way.
Right. Well, can you, because again, purpose, and I guess we need to define more terms, because there's purpose and then there's the design, and within the design there is that concept that you introduced, which is gift, right? Within that design, you are gifted certain things, but that's not the purpose. So there's a difference between the gift, and it's between the gift and the purpose, and then between the gift and the skills and the talents and so on. So can you help us kind of understand those differences?
Yeah, one of the things that we do is we use a lot of words that have similar meanings and overlap, and then we make them mean the same thing.
Right.
And when we don't make the distinctions, what happens is that the power of a word is in the distinction, the subtlety, the difference, the variation. So, for instance, I define a gift as your unique capacity to create a specific, powerful impact in the world, right? Unique, specific, powerful impact. A skill is something that you acquire. It is a ability or something that you learn how to do, right? So we go to school, we go to college, we go to high school, trade school, whatever the case may be, to develop a skill, and then to be certified that you know this skill.
Right.
But by very definition, if it has to be learned or it can be learned, it can't be inherent, right?
Right.
So it can't be a gift.
Right.
Then we like to say that someone is talented or skill, that we equate those two things.
Mm-hmm.
But a talent is defined as an aptitude for being good at a particular skill.
Right.
Well, a skill specifically, right?
Right.
And so we have certain natural talents, certain natural aptitudes. You might say that you naturally lean towards or have interest in being good at certain things,
Mm-hmm.
but you also tend to have an aptitude for that. So I like to use LeBron James as a perfect example. He's 6'9", 260, can jump out of the gym fast as whatever, right? His aptitude, his talents lend himself. He's a great passer, he's great court vision. People like to talk about his photographic memory. He can recall sequences of plays exactly as they happened. He can put everybody where they were on the floor. And he can talk about that in great detail.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very unique skill set. So he has a natural aptitude for playing basketball well.
Right.
That is a talent, or a set of talents that suit a skill set, which is playing basketball, this particular sport. But that is not the same as having a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Your gift is your inherent capacity to create an impact in the world. So if LeBron James was born 100 years ago when there was no basketball,
right,
will we say that he didn't have a gift?
Right.
Right. And so your gift is present regardless of context, regardless of time or place. You can always use your gift to create an impact wherever you are, because your gift is your identity.
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to create that impact is always built inside you. So you always have purpose. You always had a purpose.
Right.
You just don't necessarily know what that purpose is.
Right. So we go on this quest to find our purpose, right? To find it out there, though.
Right.
What if it's not out there, really to be found? It is part of us, part of our design. Right.
Yeah. Part of that is because we, our gift is natural, and because it's natural, it comes to us effortlessly. Mm-hmm. So we create this impact naturally.
Right.
But if it's natural, it's obvious. It's usually hiding in plain sight. It's often overlooked, and because we overlook it, then we don't value it.
Right.
Because it's easy, and that's a whole other.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah, but that's true. But that's and that's, putting out that is, really in a way what you teach, when you're coaching, because you use the same concept to coach. You would coach an entrepreneur, you would coach your leaders, you coach sales team, executives, and so on. But it's not so much, when you think maybe entrepreneur, like how to build a business, so much as understanding this inherent, or this gift, right? And then going out and making that impact that you're naturally making, but now you're focused because you understand what the impact is, right? And so in let's continue talking about this impact, and forgot my question.
That's okay. I mean, one of the things that for when I'm doing that, I'll give you an example. When someone is building a business, oftentimes people start their business from the wrong foundation. They can start it because out of desperation, or sometimes from a place of fear or frustration. You're in a job, you want to get out of that job. What can I do to start this business? Because what you want is out of the job.
Yes.
It is not to create a certain impact. It doesn't mean that you don't have great intentions. It doesn't mean that you want to be benevolent or do service to people when you create this business. But you can, if you come from the wrong place, then you can build it the wrong way. And when it's not built with this understanding in mind, that I have this unique capacity, how can I utilize this and build a business around? Because people think that a business, what they actually do is create other jobs. They turn around and they create another job for themselves, but they're their own boss. But they're just as miserable or frustrated or end up stuck at some point down the road, because you may be making more money because you're working for yourself, but you're not creating more impact. And that restricts you when you're going to try to scale that thing, scale the impact, scale the effect of the business, scale the impact of your leadership, whatever the case may be.
So really, when we talk again about our design, it is in order to make an impact, right? So we are here to make an impact, some kind of impact, right? And how would we know the kind of impact? And I know that's a loaded question. That's a loaded question. But are there specific things that we can do that will help us to kind of know, how can we figure out what is our design, what is our gift, and the impact that we have been here to make,
So there's a couple of steps. So in the book, I give 9 keys to discovering your gift. I will preface this by making a generalization, lumping them onto one thing, which is self-awareness.
Yes. Yeah.
Most of us are not to be self-aware. We are taught to be self-conscious, but that's not the same thing. So self-conscious means that we are taught to focus on our behavior in the context or environment where we are. Right. So at all times, we are worried about fitting in. Self-awareness is understanding how you stand out.
Right.
And when you understand how you stand out, then you know how your impact is affected onto the rest of the world, and then you understand why it's so important. And this is important because whether you are having a job or a business, whether you're a leader, we all are constantly looking for our place in the world. And most of the decisions that we make are built around that lack of understanding of what that place is. Trying to make one, trying to force one, trying to discover one, instead of just understanding that you have a place. Your place is wherever you are. But if you don't understand why you are where you are, and when I say, I don't mean that location-wise, or I don't mean even in a relationship, but if you don't understand why you are where you are, making the impact that you're making, then you will always be chasing or pursuing that.
Right.
Feeling empty, if you will.
And it goes back to what you said earlier about the future. Right. Even Tishoy, she noted that the future is not a real place. Oftentimes we just keep focusing on what we're going to do, right? Where we are going. If when I have this, then I'll be, or when I do this, when I'm done with this, then I'll be, and so on. But we don't realize where we are at the moment is our place of impact, right? And I remember when we, for me, we had those discussion, I guess years ago now, about, when I'm not understanding or not being self-aware yet, and I'll say, well, when this happens, and I went through, I shared with you, I went through graduate school that way, where I was, I don't disclose, but I did not like it there, and so it was, I'm there temporarily, and when I leave, then I'll be happy, right? And then something else happens, and you say, well, when this is over, or when I get a new job, when I get a new car, when I move into this neighborhood or whatever, then, right? But our place of impact is right now, at the moment, right?
Well, because now is all there is. I said that the future is not a real place, but neither is the past.
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
It's gone.
A lot of us live in either the past or the present or the future because we feel like the present is such a dissatisfying place.
Right.
And yet the most powerful place that you can be is in the present. Because that's the only place you can be. You can't, I can't be in tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, if you're a little kid, and you know that you're going to Disney World the next day, right? You're lay awake all night because you can't wait for tomorrow to come.
Right.
You're living in the future. right? And that's fine to dream. It's fine to be excited about the future, but wouldn't it be better to be excited about the present?
Right.
You know, and most people live their whole lives with all of their emotions and all their motivations being tied either forward or behind them,
Right.
and not present where they are. And I'm not saying, you know, I have a course I teach called target practice,
Mm-hmm.
and target practice is about goal setting, extreme goal setting for extreme success.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about goal setting is that it's not a place to go to, it's a place to come from.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and so
Yeah.
and so you are reverse engineering where you want to be,
Right.
to the present.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Gary Keller, the billionaire who owns Keller Williams, he wrote a book, and one of his quotes that I love is that the purpose of a goal is to keep you appropriate in the moment.
In the moment. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think you told me that before.
But it's a powerful thing. Because,
but it is. It is because the anticipation, the goal that, you know, you talked about the kid, you know, thinking about Disney World. You have a certain anticipation, right? And so and you have a certain preparation, but that's in the present. In the present, but you can't base your excitement or anticipation based on the past. You know, last year we tried to go and we didn't go. You know, we missed our flight. It's a whole different story as we're going to Disney World. Like, well, I hope we go because last year, by the time we got there, we were late. You know, that just changes the whole thing, right? And so we have to see not the present, not so much the future, not the past, sorry, not so much the future as in waiting for the future, right? But then living in the moment, building, like you said, you know.
Right.
So that is, that's something there. Let me see. We had a comment. The purpose of a goal is to keep you appropriate in the moment, in the present. That's correct. So let's talk a little bit about wellness and how that comes into play. And I like when you talk about, you always give the example of the doorknobs. That's why I'm using the doorknob. But you say, you know, a doorknob is there to open a door, open the way, right? When you place a doorknob on a door, right, and it has that is the function, right? And let's talk about, you know, those three keys about the gifts. When you talk about the gift does not fail and so on.
So those are the 3 laws of giftedness.
3 laws, yeah.
You want me to tie those to wellness?
Well, let's present the laws. Let's present the laws, and then we'll see how that applies to our wellness.
Okay. Yeah. So in the book, I talk about the 3 laws of giftedness, which are really simple. The first law of giftedness says that every person has a special, unique, and powerful gift. The second law says that every gift has a purpose, and the third law says that no gift can fail at the purpose for which it was created.
Right.
If you look in nature, everything that was created with a purpose, well, everything in nature has a purpose, right? So in the ecosystem, every aspect of nature exists for a particular reason. So trees exist, clouds, grass, the ocean, everything exists, and it exists in perfect harmony. This is what we see when people talk about climate change, or when companies come in and disrupt the ecosystem, that it has a ripple effect, right? So if you kill off, for instance, if you hunt all the deer, then now the predators don't have a place to go, and so they go looking for more prey, and they end up eating human beings or some other prey that they weren't naturally supposed to meet. So every prey has a natural predator, and every predator has a natural environment, and every natural environment exists in a certain way, right? So everything has a purpose. So saying all that to say that we as human beings exist in this world with a particular purpose. So we as a species have a purpose.
Right.
And then individually, we each have a purpose within the species
right.
and within the world.
Right.
The third law of giftedness, which says that no gift can fail the purpose for which it was created. You look at nature, and everything that was created with a purpose fulfills its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So birds always fly, water always flows, the wind always blows, the sun always shines. Everything, water always flows. Like everything that has a purpose fulfills its purpose.
Right.
It doesn't fail. And that is the most important, most powerful law to me, because then you know that if I have a gift, my gift will never fail.
Will never fail. Exactly. And from that perspective, and so when I asked you to talk about this concept, I'll let you come to that. Well, when I thought about this concept and wellness, which is actually, why I do what I do, because I feel like if we are in this point at a certain point of wellness, then there are certain things that we are able to do. And before we get to that, I'm going to go through the questions. We got 2 questions coming in, so we'll go through that, and then we'll ask you a question. So are there scriptures that coincide with the thought about present purpose and gift? I think the scriptures about not worrying about tomorrow. That would be one.
Thanks for that question. That's a great scripture, actually. The reason why we're taught not to worry about tomorrow is because, all things are in the Creator's hands, right? Mm-hmm. But again, tomorrow's not a real place, right? The idea of giftedness is really tied to abundance. Mm-hmm. The concept of abundance, which means that everything that you have, you already need. Everything that you will ever need, you already have the capacity to create, or you are connected to the source of all things. Mm-hmm. So I like to think of it this way. We worry so much about money and things that we think we need. But the things that we need the most, we actually overlook and worry about the least. Mm-hmm. So you've never walked into a room and looked around and said, I hope there's enough oxygen in here for me to breathe. We don't lie awake and think about, I hope there's enough oxygen for me to breathe tomorrow. Right? If I wake up and it's my last breath, we don't worry about those things, right? So everything that you need is already supplied, but we overlook that because the things that we think we need, we don't understand we have the capacity to either create, control, or we are connected to the source, which will provide all those things. It's already provided.
Exactly. And so that's why then I'm thinking about, when Jesus says, I come to give you life more abundantly, when he says, everything that you ask in my name, that then you will be able to do the things that I am doing. All of those scriptures come into place when we realize that, if we understand what he has designed us for, right? When we understand our gift. And the key to understand the gift is to know who the gift giver is, right? If you understand what the gift come from, who gave it to you, and you understand he gave it to you, then we go back to it cannot fail, right? And so all of those different scriptures and the teaching of Jesus showing us a lot of time we just say those verses and we kind of say, well, it was back then, right? It was for the disciples, it was the apostles that came after him. But all of those things actually have to do with us. It was not a promise that had a time limit to, right? It's an ongoing promise. And so all of those things are relevant to us at this point.
The Bible says that from the foundation of the earth, right? If you look in Genesis, at the end of every day, God looked at what he had made and said, it is good. When he looked at man, he said, it is good. Now, he looked at Adam and said, he still needs help. And he created a woman. Right. And then he finished and said, it's good. And when he created man, he gave him a purpose in that moment, right? You are to have dominion over the earth, which means that you're meant to rule. Dominion is built into your DNA. It's your very assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And so we spend our lives worried about what's going to happen when we're the ones that have dominion to manifest it or to create it.
Right.
And I know there's a whole lot of law of attraction and manifesting and things of that nature, but when you really understand that we are, if you're made in the image of God, and God is a creator,
mm-hmm.
you are made in the likeness of God to create.
Right.
Which means that you have the capacity to create whatever you need.
Right.
Or you connected to the source will provide the capacity
mm-hmm.
to create whatever you need.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah. Yes, very true. Judy said, question. So as Christians, are we supposed to plan for the future constantly? And as for the gift of wellness, if we are living in purpose, doesn't the value of purpose depend on it coming to fruition in the future? So I agree with your thought on the present, but when it introduced the laws and the fulfillment purpose, doesn't fulfillment speak of the future?
first of all, hi, Judy. Second of all, that's a very deep question. And I want to break it down. So, aren't we supposed to plan for the future constantly? So, when I say that the future is not a real place, I don't mean that it doesn't exist in our minds.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to form the concept of the future is a uniquely human ability.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, right, even in creation, God talks about the fact that he basically had to create morning, noon, and night.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing that scientists are actually uncovering. That there's a whole aspect of quantum physics, and I won't go too deeply into it. But the concept is basically that when you really look at it, time is a construct that God created for human beings,
mm-hmm.
right? Because God exists outside of time.
Outside of time, right?
So that's why I say future is not a real thing. For God,
there's no future.
Well, for God, it's always the present,
right?
Right. So it's not like things. There's this. We think of time as linear,
mm-hmm.
and for God, it's a point.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just always is. Things have happened, or things that have happened and are happening to Him are all the same. And that's something that's more difficult for us to comprehend. But if you think of it this way, that's why God knows that you already have everything you need. He created us in that same vein, because when you start to live in your gift, you no longer worry about if it will come to pass.
Mm-hmm.
It already is.
Right.
Because a bird doesn't go to sleep tonight worried if he's going to be able to fly tomorrow. Right? He's not thinking about the days when it was windy and he was like, and I had my broken wing, I had to heal. He just knows when I need to fly, I will be able to fly.
Right.
If I can't, I can't. Right? But the Bible tells us that the birds of the air are cared for as well as the foxes who have holes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So everything has everything it needs to do what it's supposed to do to fulfill its purpose. And so do we. So you said, as for the gift of wellness, are we living in purpose? Doesn't the value of purpose depend on it coming to fruition? That is a really good question. And I want to frame the answer in a way that gives value. The value of purpose is not about the future. The value of purpose is living in your purpose. It's walking in your gift.
It's your actual impact at the moment.
Well, because the moment is all you have, right? We worry about, well, it's got to come to fruition in the future, but everything that we do in the future is contingent on what we've done in the past. What's that quote? So many people worry about the future, hoping that they can change it. Mm-hmm. People never think about the future and think about the present and what they can change to affect the future.
Right.
I butchered that quote. But in effect, that's true. All you can affect is the present. Mm-hmm. That's why that Gary Keller quote is so important, because what he's saying is that when you want to plan for what you want it to be, think about it as we talk about how you want to store up food for the winter. That means you've got to plant in the spring. You've got to fertilize and water the crops in the summer, and you have to harvest it in the fall and store it so in the winter you can eat. But so in essence, you are always in the particular season that you're in, you are appropriate in that particular season. You just know, if I do what I'm supposed to do in every season, the future will take care of itself, right? And so that's how we have to think. What we do is we don't understand our ability to affect the present. And when we understand that our gift is our unique ability to create the future, right, based on where you are, on what season that you're in, then you don't worry about the future. Like, and so you want to talk about wellness, that is where most of the wellness comes. When we started talking about dis-ease and things of that nature, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But you said when you introduce the laws and the fulfillment of purpose, doesn't fulfillment speak to the future? Actually, fulfillment speaks to the present. Again, I can't emphasize that enough, because the future is not a real place. If you are not fulfilling what you're supposed, it's like if you go to college. You know, if you don't study every day, when the quiz comes or the test comes, you're less likely to be successful. Worrying about the tests every day but not studying in the moment is ridiculous, right? And so most people will try and put it off until the end, and cram and get it all together, and then hope for the best, right? Or worry about it the whole time. And what you could have been doing was living in that moment and being the most powerful that you could be. That makes sense.
Right. And yeah, how do I do this? Okay. Got so many comments.
Thanks for your question.
Yes, that was a really good question. Lost my place in the comments. Oh, I was just going to show this here because it's cute. I love that you're both on. Thank you, Doc, for that. And Judy responded, always farming in the present based on the past experience to create outcomes for the future based on my gift and fulfillment of my purpose in the present.
And I love that you put farming in the present. That's a great way to frame it. But it's not based on past experiences.
Right.
It's only based on a deep understanding of the power of your gift. In the book, I talk about the fact that in every acorn is an oak tree, right? For oak tree acorns, of course. But so the oak tree is always present in the acorn, right? And on every acorn, every oak tree is an acorn. So the capacity to recreate more trees, to build a forest, is always there. And you don't have to worry about the fact that, what a lot of us want to do is we want to worry about, well, what happens if the oak tree doesn't? You don't know that. All you know is that in this thing is the essence of it. And so I should preserve it and care for it and be appropriate with it in that point. You're always in the present. The past cannot be changed, right? What has happened has already happened. And that's why I say most people live in one version of the other. Like you were saying, like a kid that's at Disney World. That would be like a kid at Disney World in the middle of a theme park, worrying about the night before, as in, man, or like you said, over the last year, right? And that's what a lot of us do. We have so much shame and regret. Right? We'll dive into that a little bit more too, but
yeah. So and thank you, Lauren. You said if you don't do what needs to be done in the present, you'll have no future harvest. And that is a good way for us to introduce this wellness element. We touched about it a little bit in what you were explaining. But wellness comes into, so first, different aspects. So understanding that we are whole, right? First of all, okay. Our endeavors, our dreams, our health, in everything that we do and are, all of those things are a whole. And so first, touching on worrying, for example, and mental health, and a lot of the mental health aspect is, again, the self-awareness. Of course, we have there are genetic predispositions and genetic diseases and so on, things that are passed on. But also a lot of what, in terms of anxiety, depression, and so on, those things are often related to us not knowing our design. Right? Would you agree with that?
100%. In the book, I talk about the fact that older people remember when they would talk about, maybe you're gonna worry yourself to death, right? You're over here worrying, and we spend a lot of time and energy,
right,
mentally focused on what's going to happen on these questions, right?
Right.
Or manufacturing the worst case scenario. Yeah. We're saying, because we're just imagining all those things, and we're really afraid. We live in fear of those things, and we know that those fears, those anxieties, over time break us down mentally and emotionally, because our minds are connected to, like, our we don't understand how powerful our minds are to be able to create these effects that we have inside of us, right? So our bodies begin to literally attack ourselves, right, and to break down and to create dis-ease in our bodies. So there's a book by Dr. Timothy Jennings called The God-Shaped Brain. And he talks about how the studies have shown that when people focus on an angry, vengeful God, it actually activates inflammation in the body and in the brain. Right?
I remember when I read that, I was like, what? But it's true. It's true.
And all disease, doctors know fundamentally that disease is basically based around inflammation. Right? Because the body inflames to protect the area, right? And so it begins to attack it. Now imagine if there's not a real infection, but you have manufactured it with your mind, right? And that is something that we tend to do. So we inflame ourselves, and we cause all these other issues. And you add on top of that, you're eating wrong, you have a high stress job, your situation in relationships, all those other things. But again, all those things are factors that are created by decisions that we've made based on fear, anxiety, a desire to be safe, a lack of self-awareness, understanding who we are and the impact that we're supposed to make in the world.
Right. And it's just like, you were talking about water, or the river that has to flow, right? Well, let's think about, what can happen to the water, what can happen to the river, and how can that affect the flow? So it's still going to flow, but in what quality, or with what hurdles along the way? Right. So if we have a river and then you have a factory, that's dumping, waste in the water. So now it is flowing, but it might be too thick, and now there's some stagnation points, right? And then the impact that it's now making, instead of being more of a cleansing and refreshing impact to the environment around it, it's a polluting impact, right? And so as you are continuing and moving, right, the impact can be, I would say, down, or it can be affected in a way that it's not as beneficial as it could be. If you have, if you have a construction, or you put a dam, or people. I saw something one time where something that's popular now that people do is doing those rock sculptures, meaning they go to a river, and then they take some big rocks, and then they do like a little kind of mount. They stack up the rocks, and it's pretty, and they take pictures, look at my rock sculpture. Right. Well, actually, as nature friendly as this looks, it's actually not beneficial at all to the river. Right. You're changing the flow, you're affecting the ecosystem by doing that. And so there are different things that can happen to the water, or that can affect the quality of, or bring challenges, I guess, to the flow. And with that, I was thinking about, for example, when we make some decisions. We talked about worry. Worry affects the flow, right? When we decide to eat certain things, right? And so, for example, if you are eating things that are, with the usual culprit, sugar, salt, but also you think about food coloring, for example, how food coloring can affect the mental health. Food coloring being linked to, ADHD, attention deficit, dementia, mental health, all kind of mental health issues, learning disabilities.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And that effect that it has, for example, on you being so distracted, and then not being able to connect, not being able to rest, for example, right? Which is another aspect of wellness, resting. So if you're not able to rest, if you're not able to concentrate,
right,
in those moments, how does that affect, your ability to understand, to have this, self-awareness, and this impact that you could have. So there are so many different things that can affect our I would say ability to operate or to walk into our gifts.
Well, so I want to go back to your example of the water. I heard a great quote from Jeff Moore this summer, and it says, "Water's natural state is clarity, and the mind's natural state is clarity."
Right.
And one of my coaches, Brian Ryder, he would always say, a clear mind can always solve its own problems. And what a lot of us are trying to do is, if you want to equate the mind to water, is that we are trying to peer through a polluted, muddy water flow to figure out what we should do or how we should behave, right? Giftedness is kind of a purifier that lets you understand exactly, it helps to clarify, right? And you do have to do the work of keeping the poison and the pollution and the noise and all those things out. But the thing that you have to understand is also the power of a clear mind, right? You talked about the food. So when you eat the wrong food and you feel unwell or your mind is sluggish, right? So you have you feel sleepy and you can't, but your body is unwell, you can't digest it, so you're eating at the wrong time, and so you're falling asleep and you can't rest, right? So now the next day, and I was listening to a friend of mine talking. He was talking about how when you lose even one good night of sleep, it takes 5 days for your THC levels to reset, right? So you have to continue to get good sleep,
right?
But you can't, like people say, how to catch up on. You can't catch up on.
You can't
sleep.
catch up on it,
right? You can't catch up on it. But imagine if you are in a habit of being a bad sleeper. So you are never in a position where your mind can ever clear. The sediment can never settle.
Right. Yeah.
And so many of us live our lives in those ways, and then if you add that on top of the fact that, we talked about, we talk about generational curses and things of that nature. The Bible talks about the fact that, I will visit the sins of the father, the sons for the third and fourth generation. What we are actually talking about is that there are not just genetic diseases that are passed down, but genetic mindsets. Poison mindsets that are passed down from generation to generation.
Right.
And so until we understand, one, that we are inherently born with powerful value, that we can have that thought process to be able to combat all these negative thinkings that are happening, right? And so now we're not passing those things down to our children. So we talk about breaking generational curses. We talk about, healing ourselves mentally and physically. But you also have to heal your thinking, because the way that you think will affect the way that you transmit those things to your children and to your generations. It's funny because a lot of people are talking about generational wealth. I'm a business coach. I talk about entrepreneurship and things like that. And a lot of people want to build generational wealth. Yet a lot of people don't realize that by the second generation after that person who's built that wealth, they've already spent the money.
Right.
And you say, well, how can that be? They were raised in this environment. They had this money, but they raised it because the thing that was not transmitted was the mindset to continually be able to perpetuate that. So it doesn't do you any good to kill yourself building generational wealth. The real generational wealth is in a mind that
Yes.
understands its
Yeah.
gift
Yeah.
and understands its impact and
Mhm.
understands its ability to create exponential impact around it in the world.
Mhm.
So,
Yes, that's so true. And again, we go back to the self-awareness.
mhm.
Self-awareness helps you to know, why you're doing what you're doing,
Right,
pretty much,
right.
and understanding, again, that your gift cannot fail, that your fears and then your,
Mhm.
everything that you imagine, your limits, all of those things are uh just sorry, all of those things are not um I won't say that they're not true or they're not of concern, but we are kind of amplifying things and making stories and telling ourselves different things. And all of those things have to do with our clarity. And our
Mhm.
clarity,
Mhm.
woman. And that, like, you always say you're illuminary, right? You bring clarity, you bring clarity. And that's, understanding, again, understanding your gift, understanding your design. When you understand your design, when you know that you have this car,
Mhm.
right? You understand a car, you understand what fuel to put in the car,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because yes, you know what the purpose, the function, what the car has been built for,
Right,
right?
right.
And so you are going to make sure that you have a certain fuel in the car. You are going to make sure that all the parts, are aligned. You're going to make sure that it's equipped with the right tires and so on and so forth.
Mhm. Mhm.
You need windshield wipers and the right windshield fluid and all those
Mhm.
things, because uh, things you have to, it's just kind of like equipping,
Mhm.
equipping yourself. And you need checkups, right? You need to get your
Right.
oil changed, and all those things come into play when you understand, your design, your inherent design, when you understand your gift. And
Well,
go ahead.
well, no, I was going to say, I can't remember now if it's in the book or not, but
You
I
tell me, I'll
liken it
see if
to
it's in the book.
I liken it to a sledgehammer and a power drill, right?
Hmm.
Your design is about the impact that you're supposed to have,
Hmm.
right? Both a sledgehammer and a drill can put a hole in the wall,
Hmm.
but the
Hmm.
purpose of the hole is very different.
Right.
And the purpose of the hole is built in, that they're supposed to create, is built into the design of the
Hmm.
tool.
Right. Right.
So if you
Hmm.
if you want to hang a picture on the wall, you don't
Hmm.
use a sledgehammer.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if you want to tear a wall down, you don't use a drill.
Right.
Now, you could use a drill the same way you use a sledgehammer, but you're more likely to do damage to the drill than to the wall.
Right.
And what you have is many people that are going through life
Hmm. Hmm.
acting like sledgehammers
Right. Right.
when they're really drills,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
acting like drills
Right.
when they're really sledgehammers.
Right.
The difference in understanding your design, know that you have a gift, but
Hmm.
understand what your gift
Hmm.
is so important, because once you understand that, you're not out here acting like something that you're not.
That you're not.
And
Right.
you're not envious of
Hmm.
someone who can do things or have an impact that you don't have,
Right.
because you understand the value of the impact
Hmm.
that you create.
That you have. And that's, again, it goes back to mental health and anxiety and depression. You don't have to be what you are not. And you don't have to, covet, right? You
Right.
don't have to look at and say, oh man, so and so is doing this or that, and I am not. Because, well, maybe that's not what you're supposed to be doing, right? Right?
Right.
And you are in your moment, in your place. And so all of those things, all of those barriers, all of those limits, all of those misconceptions, and all of those things fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now you have a certain freedom to really be,
Right.
what you are created, what you're designed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're being what you're designed to be, then you can do what you're designed to do. I forget who's this doctor that says do be do be do. And that's the thing, that you can do things, you have to stop and be, and then you can do some more. You can't be in the sense of just, I'm just being, Right, because that's the I live in the present. I'm just being, and you can't not be either into the I'm doing. I got to do this in the grind and the hustle and the this and the that without resting and taking the time to be. Right.
Well, I will. I'm not going to argue with that. I will. I will say that that's actually doing is a product or byproduct of being.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we are human beings, not human doings.
Right.
And so the distinction is that when you make the definition of or identify yourself as what you do, then you diminish it based on it's a comparison game.
Right. Right.
Because we say that certain things are more valuable than others because of a hierarchy or what society says we need. So, so a brain surgeon has a higher value because they're more rare, their skill set. What they do is more valuable than somebody who works in McDonald's, right?
Right.
However, there is no inherent value difference between a human being, one human being and the other.
Right.
Especially when they're both operating in their gift. Because someone who is in service at McDonald's, who is giving the surgeon the food that they need in that particular moment, right, is doing something that is as valuable because you're helping that doctor to be calmer, safe. We'll talk about the health of
McDonald's.
but either way, that is a function of doing. Understanding is being.
Right. Right.
Knowing that I am enough.
Right.
And you hear people say that enough, but people don't know why.
Right. Right.
Why am I enough? Right? And because God didn't create you to do a particular thing. He created you to be a particular thing. And when you are consciously, intentionally fulfilling the process of being in every aspect, you know what to do.
Exactly. Right. And you know what to do, and your decisions, it affects your decisions. And so when you are deciding on what to eat, should I go to stay up or should I go to sleep, should I move, should I and exercise versus movement, but should I move my body, should I take the time to meditate, should I, and I don't like should either.
Well, okay. What you end up doing is you start viewing life through your gift and the impact that you're designed to have. And what you say is, can I be as impactful?
Exactly. Thank you.
If I am not doing these things. And so here's the other thing. We talk a lot about anxiety and things of that nature, right? Insecurities that people have. People feel insecure. All those are stories that we tell ourselves when we have these narratives. And so if I have a narrative that I am essentially broken as a human being, right?
Yeah.
Which is something that we preach a lot in church.
Yes.
We teach a lot in society. We manufacture this idea that we are broken. There's something wrong with us when we come. And so we need to fix it with other stuff.
Right.
Food, clothes, relationships, likes on Instagram, whatever it is. I need other stuff to fix me, to make me feel fixed, to medicate what's wrong with me. Right.
Right. And then I'll be
happy. Then I'll be enough. Then I'll be this, right? And so a lot of that, you already enough is meant to combat that. But if you don't know why, then the decisions that you make, you actually start these cycles. In aviation, they call it a doom spiral, because what you do is you have this thought pattern that leads you to start in this behavior, which leads to another bad behavior, which leads to another one, and so you just start to spiral down because it's momentum. You recreate momentum that you can't get out of, and so if we get back and realize, when I'm coaching people, I talk a lot about, understanding how to install the right habits, right? So there's a book by B.J. Fogg called Tiny Habits. And it's the idea is that instead of trying to fix yourself and fix the whole situation, look at what's the tiniest habit that I can start. And there's a process he has, involves finding a trigger to be able to make this habit happen.
Right.
And then over time, you get the effect of the habit by installing the trigger and the smallest possible actions you can take.
Right.
So when you do that, I'll give you an example. So for instance, on my desk in my office, I have men's vitamins, and my wife would buy them for me, and I would forget to take them because they were in the kitchen, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff there, and it just wasn't in my routine. So what did I do? I read that book, and I thought, okay, what can I do? Because by taking the vitamins, it has a exponential effect on my health, right? I feel better, I'm healthier, I'm stronger, whatever the case may be. I need these to supplement my diet. I put them on my desk. So when I sit down every morning to start my work, Zoom calls, whatever the case may be, it's right there. It's nothing that while I'm booting up a Zoom call, I reach over there, pop a couple in my hand, and go. So that's a trigger. Now, I don't have to do anything momentous. I don't have to think myself to be stronger. I just value myself enough to recognize this is something I want to do. I want to be able to continue. And why do I want to do it? And the why is the part that we really have to embody when it comes to our giftedness, because your gift is the point, right?
Yeah.
The point of your life is to walk in your gift.
Right.
Like a Ferrari serves no purpose if it's just sitting in a warehouse doing nothing.
Right.
A tractor serves no purpose if it's just sitting in the farm, in the barn, right? You have a gift, you have to use it. And so, discovering it, owning it, mastering it, those things are important. And that's where you're at. But if you're not understanding that, then you're going to be in a situation where you're going to start hitting the doom side. And that's what we see with so many people.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I was just saying that's what we see with so many people, and you see the effects. So we talk a lot about, even in the world, like society, America. We talk about the division and things of that nature, right? People are over there lobbing bombs at the other tribe, blaming other people for stuff that's going on. And really, if you understand, you have the capacity to affect your own life, to create the life that you want, that you have purpose and meaning and intention.
Right.
And so does everybody else. Right?
Yes.
Then I'm no longer looking at this person as my enemy or the problem.
Exactly.
Right? I'm looking at myself as the cause of my own life. I'm looking at myself as connected to the real source of everything that I need.
Right.
I ain't worried about you, bro. Like you can do what you do.
Right.
And really, it's incumbent on me to help you, because we all need everybody acting in their own gift to fulfill the purpose, to create the impact that they were designed to have.
Right.
And sadly, most people aren't living that life. They're still chasing it. They're still trying to manufacture it and not just living into it, living from it. And that is where the deficit that people feel. They think they're broken when they're not, but they just don't understand how powerful they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's true. And as we are, because we could do this all day, we have reached the top of the hour. And we have so we have reached the top of the hour. But if anybody has questions, we can take a couple questions, and then we'll wrap up. I like this what you think about this comment here. We're not broken, but we've all had experiences of brokenness.
I like for Doc to clarify that statement, because I don't want to misinterpret what I think he's saying. I don't want to respond to what I think he's saying. I like to kind of respond to the essence of it. I will say that brokenness is an experience that brokenness is definitely a story that people experience, that they manufacture. Gabor Mate, a prominent developmental psychologist, talks about the ways that children interpret the world. The first 7 years are very much, we're sponges, but also children are very narcissistic. So they make everything about them. And if you trace back most of the trauma that people have experienced, it exists in somewhere in that realm, those first 7 years or so.
Right.
Often not very, very, not very, very, not always the most brutal trauma that you can think of, but the way that they interpreted it because of the environment that they were in,
right,
contributed to this narrative that they lived out of, right? And so, for whatever reason, if you grew up with a narrative that I am loved and I am valued and I am whole, you live that way because that is a story, that is the foundation of the story that you live your life. But if for whatever reason you are in an environment where that is being the opposite is being transmitted to you, then you are going to find ways to justify that narrative wherever you are, and you'll actually create it wherever you are. I had a client. We were having a session one time, and she was having some challenges around her own, basically charging enough for what she did, and she believed that we started breaking it down and realized that she believed that she always had to prove that she was good enough. She grew up with a bunch of, quite a few siblings. And so she was one of the younger ones. And she mentioned a time where she was supposed to get punished for something that she had done at school. And so she went and hid under the stairs. There was a little cubby or closet under the stairs. And she hid there all evening. And no one ever came to look for her. And so she came out. And by the time she came out, it was bedtime. She went to bed. And their parents just forgot about the punishment. And she interpreted that to mean that I am not valuable enough for anybody to even look for me. And so she had that experience, and that was kind of a formation of a narrative. And so to be able to break that apart can be challenging. But we all have those narratives that we believe in different ways for different reasons. I think Doc, he could clarify. You want to put that on the screen, then?
Yes, and that's Dr. Delia, actually. So she was saying, better put, we've all had broken experiences.
So I guess that story, kind of translates to that. Like, we've all had experience. Well, so I'll put it this way: we all have interpretations of experiences that we create stories around, right? So,
well, let me say the experience is how we live it, and so the experience come from the meaning or the interpretation, right? Because we can both be sitting here and have completely different experiences of the same thing. And so the experience is kind of based on the meaning. What is happening is not the experience. The experience is how we live what is happening.
So our minds are meaning-making machines. Nothing means anything. It just is.
It just is.
Right? I mean, there are reasons why things happen. There are reasons why we have earthquakes. But an earthquake has no more meaning than the wind blowing, right? It's just something that happens. It's a cause and effect. It's a part of the environment. It's part of the world.
Right.
But if I believe that I put something on my bookshelf, or I put something on my back porch and the wind comes and blows it off, oh man, I'm upset, right? And then I come back and I put something up and now there's an earthquake. All bad things happen to me. I've created this meaning about this experience. And it's based on this idea, the story that I have, that bad things happen to me.
Right.
Right. And that's when I'm talking about the trauma that people happen. What people do is they turn experiences and they give meaning to them, and the meaning becomes their identity. Right. So it goes from this thing happened to this thing happened, which was bad, to this bad things always happen to me, to I am bad.
I am bad. Yeah, and that's so Dr. Daly is saying our interpretation of experiences is what create the feeling of brokenness. So it's
100%.
that's it.
100%.
That's it. And I'm gonna leave this there for a second for everybody to take it in, because it makes sense to us, but it might not. If different concepts being new, seeing things differently. Now I know for me, and for you too, because you were going through a process. You remember what I was telling you? Why are you watching all those videos all the time? Why did But you were going through a process, right? And then now, when I'm coming in and you started sharing those things with me. I'm like, oh, okay, keep watching, you know. And then having different discussion, and the book really for me, Breaking Orbit, having to read it and read it from a very what was we call it, kind of with a critical mindset, because I wanted really wanted to pay attention and question any concept that you were putting in the book. And so it really taught me about all those things, but it takes time. It takes time to really understand and wrap our mind around certain concepts, really.
I had a story in my mind
Mm-hmm.
that success was possible for everybody except for me.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason, I wasn't meant to be special or important or impactful. That I was meant to be the guy in the background helping other people. And there's nothing wrong with being in the background. I just thought that's where I belonged because I didn't have anything of value.
And you would resist anything that puts you in the front. You would resist.
Well, I was trying to be in the front in places where I was not. That was not the greatest expression of my gift, right? So we've all seen American Idol, and we laugh at those people who go up there and try to be singers who are not singers, but they told themselves, or people have never told them, hey man, you sis, you need to rethink this thing. This is, and so when people are operating in that space, now imagine if you always that this is where I have to be. I got to be a star in the front doing this. And my way to do that is to be a singer, right? Or to be the star basketball player. When your role is not, you haven't exhibited that particular role. And when you look at those people who've been able to carve out or have been able to create an impact in the world, if you watch the Jordan documentary on the Bulls last year, escapes my mind for some reason, but you look at Dennis Rodman, right? And if you know the story of Dennis Rodman, he was an outcast. He came from foster care. He was adopted. He was just a fish out of water wherever he was. And when he got to the NBA, he started understanding, I'm not a great shooter, scorer, nothing like that. But what I can do is I can rebound. And so he just had this uncanny ability to figure out what a ball was going to be and could get there. And he dominated the game in that aspect. And one thing I want people to understand about giftedness is that your gift is your ability to dominate the world in a particular way, in the way that no one, and we use dominance in a very negative fashion or whatever. Most people think of dominance in a very negative form, but dominance comes from the word dominion. And that's what in the Bible, man was given dominion over the earth. Dominion simply means I rule this domain, right? I'm responsible for it. I rule it. My impact here is felt like it is nowhere else because that's what I was designed to do.
Right.
And so when you step into your gift, when you walk in your gift, you are in dominion. You're the master of your domain or the mistress of your domain. And that is an incredibly empowering feeling, right? So I never have to worry about doing things outside of the space. Don't worry, like that's your domain.
Right.
But in mine, I run this.
Right.
And it's not cocky or arrogant. We all have that feeling like this is my thing. Yeah. Right. As people say, I do this. Right.
Right.
Well, the giftedness version of that would be, I be this.
Right.
And there is no greater example than when God says in His Word, "I am that I am." I mean, what's more gangster? Like, who are you? I am. Like, well, what do you do? I am. Like, wait a minute. Well, how do you? I am. And if you think about it,
right.
when we start everything about our identity, everything is a tack on to what. So what are you? What do you do? I am a doctor. I am a lawyer. I am, and that's the throwaway, because as a reflection of a divine creator, I am too. I mean, the great philosopher said, "I think, therefore I am." Really, I am. Therefore, that's it.
Right. And it is funny. Again, we read all those different things and we attach it to, the God, the being out there, and not understanding and not grasping that He's telling us. He's telling us that we are. He's telling us that, everything that Jesus, saying everything that I'm doing, everything that this is the same thing that you are. This is the same, besides being the Son of God, of course. But
no, remember we were talking last week, or earlier this week, and we were talking about the fact that how the Hebrews, like, we make God in our image, right? And so we make even the Hebrews named God based on what He did, and we have kind of perpetuated that in religious culture, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nissi, the God who provides, the God who does this, the God who does that, right? And God says, I don't need, I think that He allowed those monikers, or He helped them to understand these were ways He showed up in their terms, but those are limiting.
Yes.
Right? What He's really saying is Jehovah, the God that everything.
The God that is.
the God that is. And so, the prophets would talk about, for instance, like Elijah, when he was going up against the other prophets of Baal. And they're calling down all their gods, and they're sweating and things of that nature and everything. And he just he walks up and he douses. Come here, Mama. Okay.
Mom. You're coming to Mom?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, a visitor.
Our producer has said that the show is run long. But yeah, but the point.
What are you drinking?
There's just some water. Okay.
Yeah.
When we're talking about Jehovah, right, the God that He is, right, and so the reflection that we have, as made in His image, is that we can be the same thing. That our power, going back to the whole conversation about being versus doing, is that we don't understand how powerful being is, right? We literally teach ourselves and teach our children that, hey man, you gotta get up and you gotta be busy. You gotta be at it all the time. And the fact of the matter is that being is all you have to be. Being is the essence of, because when you are, then everything flows from there. So
yeah, and looking for the computer. Yeah, and that's powerful. And I think, when it comes to our topic, again, inherent design and being, understanding. I forget what you said earlier. The choices that we make are based on who we are, and understanding who we are, understanding that self-awareness coming in helps us to make some decisions that are going to fuel, how can I present myself, right? Forget what you said. How can I present myself? What do I do? What do I eat? How do I think? All of those things that are going to help me or fuel me, to walk in my gift, right?
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's coming in.
one of the things that um, we often don't realize is how all the other decisions that we make are generated from this idea of who we are.
Right.
And so we pick certain jobs and certain careers because, one, we believe that we are only worthy of certain things, or that we need to do this to become something, right? That I need to do something of significance to be someone of significance, versus I am someone of significance. So significance is what I create. Where am I? And this is how I create it.
Right.
Again, the meaning-making machines. We have this meaning that we live with, right? So like even with our children, our daughters, this is the youngest.
It's a picture.
The youngest child always has a particular place in the house, right? As the middle child does, as the oldest child does. No, I drank all my water. Oh, you want the picture? Okay. So those things of meaning, right? If you believe that as a middle child, I got to do something to stand out. And you'll find this a lot of times. Middle children have a certain behavior. They're the ones that are quote unquote the problem child, or they're the ones that are the most well behaved because they want to make sure that they never do anything wrong. Or that is their way of complying or whatever the case may be. So we make a lot of our decisions in life. We forge these paths in life based on where we are coming from, and just not really understanding that there's a whole lot more to it. But when it all boils down to giftedness and understanding that you have a gift, that your gift has a purpose, and that your purpose isn't going to fail, right? How many of us made decisions based on the fact that we don't want to fail, right? So we pick something that's safe. How many of us have been raised by parents who did everything in their power to keep us safe, to keep us in this range? You got to make sure that you go to college and you can get this job because there's always going to be a job in nursing or whatever, right? And so people are doing things based on fears or ranges that they've been boxed into by other people. And they've never really been able to discover and step into their own power, their own purpose, etc.
Yeah. Well, on that note,
I take ownership for going along on the show. It's my fault.
No, well, like we said at the beginning, it's such a loaded topic, and it's just it is everything. It is everything about us, right? And so it's a topic that we explore over and over and over. And so, but on that note, I do want to thank everybody who joined in, everybody that commented. If you have questions or comments that you want to write as you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and we'll continue to answer. What else did I want to say? Don't forget to share. If you enjoyed this discussion and you think I can be beneficial to somebody, please share the Facebook or YouTube link with them. And if you have not subscribed yet to 39 Down channel, please do so on YouTube. 39 Down is the word 30, number 9, word down on YouTube. What else? Tell us how we can find you.
Oh, yeah. So, well, first of all, Breaking Orbit, Rip Out of the Regular by Unearthing the Power Within.
You want to hold the book for Daddy?
Hold it. Yes. There you go. Good job. It's available on Amazon. My name, Fredrick Douglass Bussey. You can also shoot me a message if you like your own autographed copy. I'm everywhere on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Clubhouse, Fredrick Bussey. FredrickBussey.com is my website. And so I'm available to speak and share more about this. I love working with entrepreneurs and leaders, especially to be able to unleash their own potential, to be able to do what they were created to do, to be who they were created to be, and have the impact that they were meant to be able to have. Yeah.
All right. And last comment here, extremely valuable. Thank you Thank you, Fredrick, for coming on. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for teaching us, for bringing clarity. Bringing clarity to life, to our lives all together. This is my next book, right? After Switch on Your Brain, you're going to read Breaking Orbit. That's awesome. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And on this note, we're going to end the show. I'm going to ask you if you want to click on End Podcast. And we're all done. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.